Hello everyone, welcome to episode number 21 of Musings of a Guild Leader. My name is Senda, as it always is, and this is, yes, episode 21, Redressing the Ranks. We're going to talk a lot about ranks in our guild and how they function and the recent adjustments to it. But first, before we hop into that, news that we have had for the last few weeks. Obviously last episode has been delayed, so this episode is a little bit about catching up really, about all the stuff that's been happening. So let's start with some of the really big stuff. First of all, achievement nights in the guild are still rocking as usual. They are very much an integral part of what makes us a very successful social guild, which is something that you can just drag all the guildies into. It doesn't really matter which level they are, and you can just go and do stuff with them, which bonds it into like one big team effort regardless of where you stand in the guild in terms of, are you a hardcore raider, sort of, are you very much a social player, do you log in like once a week, or do you log in every single day, or no matter where you are in this, you can always participate in the achievement nights, which is really, really cool. So there's always something that everyone can join into. Now, these achievement nights have been kicking off. They've been grinding away at all the various guild achievements that we have available to us at this moment. And currently, we are kind of aiming to get to the third position on our server for guild achievement points, which would put us in first place on the Horde side as well. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting very close. So it's really Fired Up and Minx deserve full credit for this. They are really pushing us to get to that mark. Them being achievement whores themselves really helps in this because they really like getting those achievements. Speaking of which, we got Heroic Lich King down. We took a team of Intrepid Raiders in there, got a little bit of preparation going there, and we actually managed to down Heroic Lich King, which was really, really cool. It's fun to go back to old encounters like that and find out that stuff can still wipe you. A Shadow Crash is actually something that will catapult you off the entire platform, no matter if you're level 85 and decked out in epics. You can't really stop that from catapulting you off, so you have to actually physically avoid them. And it's even more fun if you take someone there who actually just reinstalled his entire PC, doesn't have any add-ons, looking at you, no grace, and manages to get catapulted off, unfortunately. But yeah, stuff like that happens. It's really fun. You wipe, you try again, and you actually get to down him. It's awesome. It's a really good feeling. And on top of that, Ayissa and Minx are the two people in our guild eternally locked in the struggle for getting top rank in the amount of achievement points. Ayissa managed to get to the first place by getting to 11,000 achievement points, first of anyone in the guild. Minx caught up to him, obviously. I believe Minx is actually now in first place by, I don't know, 50 points or something. They're both of them racing. It's awesome to watch that. And the last bit of news before I hop into the main thing, before I'm wasting way too much time again on news bits because we're catching up still, is we managed to down the council in Blackwing Descent, am I saying? No, actually Bastion of Twilight, the council fight in Bastion of Twilight, which brings us up to 9 out of 12 of the bosses in the current content, which means only the 3 final bosses are still there, so Cho'Gall, Nefarian and Alakir. We're aiming for Cho'Gall next, should be very much a fun fight. We already had a few tries on him, got him down to, I believe, 30% or something, where we found out we really can't do this by bringing just one range. We need a second ranged in there, and then we can actually DPS him down properly, not get screwed over by the corruption, and get to down him. So, hopefully, by the time you guys are seeing this, we actually manage to down him. Keep an eye on our front page, that's where all the news is. Right, onwards into the actual stuff. So 21, Redressing the Ranks. There's 2 things that I want to talk about. One is the system of ranks in our guild, which is very important. And the other one is the new Guild Finder tool, which is now come into, accepted workings within patch 4.1. We've seen it for a little bit, and we can look at how this affects our guild and all the other guilds out there. And I'm going to hop into answering a few questions as well. First off, ranks within our guild. We used to have very basic system of me being the GM on top, officers below that, some veterans who are basically well-established members in the guild, give them a little bit more responsibility, inviting rights and everything, and you kind of depend on them for counsel and judgment when you're faced with hard decisions. And then you get the normal guildies, and then you get initiates and alts and what have you. But as time went by, I grew less and less comfortable with the system, because basically you have a system where over time, more and more people will get to the veteran rank. And if you extrapolate this bit into the future, And let's say, just for reference sake, that you have very low recruitment drive. You get maybe one person every month or less. But every single month, more and more people are becoming active and well established within the guild, basically earning them the veteran rank over time, as is the norm with a veteran rank like that, when you have no set definition of a veteran especially, which is someone who earns it over time. More and more people will get it, and eventually you're going to be faced with a situation where pretty much everyone that you have known for a lengthy period of time sort of is a veteran, by extent of them being in the guild longer. And that kind of ruins the entire rank, because at some point you're not going to have normal guild members, everyone's going to be a veteran, and the rank itself becomes kind of void and useless. So what I did was I scratched the veteran rank, for a number of reasons. One, what I just explained, it being a little bit useless over time. The second is a more important one. Ranks within a guild serve a few functions, but one being the most main and specific of them is, when you have a system of clear ranks within your guild, not only will established guildies know how to use that, new persons coming into your guild will instantly recognize who is responsible for what, who they need to talk to in order to get something done for themselves. And that's the most important thing, because when you get a new person into the guild and he sees that there's 15 veterans online and one officer, he's going to be like, who do I talk to? Who's responsible for what? It's not entirely clear what these veterans are doing. So, not only will that confuse people, it's a bit pointless. So what I did was I said, look, we have me as a guild leader. Obviously I'm delegating pretty much everything that I'm doing except recruitment, and I'm putting people in charge to handle specific pieces in the guild. Now these are obviously my officers, because they're directly responsible for certain things. But as time turned and things rolled along, it kind of became apparent that the officers need a few people to help them out. Sometimes one, sometimes more, but most of the time an officer will have an assistant, basically. Sarah is a great example of this. Sarah is in charge of her website and forums, and basically everything that is promoting the guild outside of the game is sort of Sarah's department. And obviously we have a very shiny website, very, very good looking. It's updated, there's news posts, and it's awesome. We linked this to Facebook recently, which is also a really good development, so people can, hop onto the guild page, get to know each other even better in real life, share pictures and everything. Go into that more in a future episode, by the way, maybe 22. But we also have the forum, and Sarah kind of rolled in Mino to take care of the forum. Mino is very good at programming, so he sorts all the technical things. Now, Sarah is ultimately responsible. Mino is the assistant. Mino used to be a veteran, which is kind of weird, because he's not actually in-game all that much. He's not actually socially active all that much as he would like to be, but he's still a veteran. So it seems weird to have... And Tyne would be another great example of this. Tyne, who recently, kind of stopped doing the music, stopped doing the editing, because he's very busy in real life. He's not online at all, basically. And he's still a veteran. So why is someone a veteran who is not really online? Again, it's weird. But I then said, what we're going to do is we're going to scratch the entire veteran rank, replace it with the assistant rank. And all of a sudden, the rank has meaning. Because you can't have the assistant rank unless you're actually an assistant. So what I did was I sat down and I said, I'm the GM, Warwick's in charge of the guild bank, he doesn't need an assistant. Sarah's in charge of the website, she has Mino to help out, so Sarah's the officer, Mino's the assistant. We have, Svintilla in charge of raids, Svintilla has Ayissa as his assistant, it's all very clear and cut out as well. And then finally we have Fired Up and Minx, who both used to be a veteran, because they're both basically equal partners in organizing the achievement nights. Now, Fired Up and Minx are basically a special case, so to put it. Fired Up is the person who is always on Mumble, always talking to people, always chatty, enthusiastic, active in promoting and getting people to join in and everything. And Minx is... it's a very simple role Minx has, basically. She is the brains behind the voice that Fired Up basically is. Fired Up just talks, and Minx is the one who actually plans out everything and yells at Fired Up when he's doing it wrong, which is very funny. But, as a consequence, I made Fired Up an officer, and I made Minx the assistant. And this might seem a bit weird, because basically Minx, who is the brains, you might be wondering, shouldn't Minx be the officer and Fired Up be the assistant? and I'll explain to you why I did it the other way around. The way ranks work in our guild is very much an open and informative and most of all encouraging aspect within our guild. Ranks are there to help people identify and establish who is in charge of what. That's why we have ranks in this guild. I'm not using them for anything else but that. As a consequence, I'm making Fired Up the officer, because that means people will go like, ooh, Fired Up is the officer, I'm gonna have to go and chat to him. And that's the normal way it works, and it very nicely flows into the normal way things roll along in our guild as well. Now, it's been established over time that Fired Up will be the one who's actually talking to people. So that really nicely slides into that. And then Minx will be there as the assistant, because Minx is actually the one who's the brains behind all of this. Initially, when I made these changes, people were a bit awkward about it, slightly awkward, but as I explained to them why, everyone was like, oh, well, that's awesome, and everyone was incredibly supportive. And that's the biggest thing that made this easy for me, is the fact that I had to go out there, explain to me, but especially the fact that everyone was very supportive and clear about it, and going like, well, Sen, I can totally see why you're changing this, why I am being demoted back to a member, I'm cool with that. And that's very important. Because as soon as people are not cool with this, you get drama, and you don't want that. Now, the easiest way to avoid drama is simply putting your foot down and saying, well, this is why we're doing it. There was one small bit where there was a bit of potential for drama, which was with Fire and Minx, who are very much a team in this. They're very much on equal footing in terms of responsibility. And when I made Fired Up an officer, basically both him and Minx were like, I'd rather not. Could you please roll it back? And I had to here, I didn't really want to, but I had to put my foot down and say, well, no. Because these ranks are not to serve anyone's personal interests. These ranks are not here to give anyone fame or status. These ranks are here to facilitate the flow of information within this guild. They're here to make it clear and concise who's in charge of what and why. That's the biggest thing about these ranks. Nothing will change that. And I'm very grateful, but they are completely, totally cool with it, and we now have an even more functional system of ranks within our guild. So I'm very happy and pleased with that. That's all about ranks, and I'm seeing that I'm kind of running out of time already, so I'm just gonna hop into the new guild finder. With patch 4.1 we get the new guild finder. It's a really cool tool, but only the GM will actually be allowed to set the parameters on it. Luckily there's not a lot. You basically tick a few boxes saying what kind of people you're looking for, what their playing times are, so weekends or weekdays, what your guild is interested in, so PvP, raids, events, social events, gathering, role-playing, whatever, leveling. And then you could put a really small description in there. So what I did eventually was coordinate this with logging onto an alt to see if the alt could actually read the entire message, because the message you can put in as a GM is actually slightly longer than what you can read, maximum can read as a potential applicant when you're looking the guild tool to actually look for guilds. So it got cropped off at the end, and then I logged onto and saw that and was like, ooh, that's not entirely good, so cropped it back a bit, and now it's actually completely good. And our message basically states, we're one of the most successful social guilds on our server. If you want to post an application, go to our forums at the following link. Slightly more in there, but that's the short version of it. Funnily enough, people still put an application, or a request as it is called, into that system. And this is quite hilarious because you get the most horrible request. It's basically, take the worst application you can imagine. Like, someone puts in an application, I'm from Greece. Really, that's it, you're from Greece. Oh my god, you're from Greece. I should totally just hop the invite button right now. How could we not have someone from Greece in our guild? Really? So anyway, we're going to do something fun with this, and I'm going to get back to that in a future episode as well. For now, I've completely run out of time. I'm going to be signing off. I hope this was really useful, especially the bit about ranks, and I shall see you all next week.